So
Nice, nice.
I
Thanks a lot.
guess we're ready. We can just start with it right away. So I was
Sure.
just going through your LinkedIn and everything, and the kind of work that you've done, so, and it's
Mhm.
phenomenal. First of all,
Great,
like the kind of work that you're
grateful.
doing with the Shell advertising and everything. So it seems pretty amazing. So first thing first, sir, Shell advertising. How did you come up with this name, and was it just random
Okay.
that just
No,
popped
no.
up?
I'll tell you, this is the story goes back to about 83, 84 when I was still in my MBA.
Mm-hmm.
And by then I decided I'd set up an advertising agency. And
Yeah.
because I'd done a 3-month internship with a agency in Delhi,
Mm-hmm.
and I was wondering what to name it. And then
Yeah.
at that point in time, I had this thing going on with my girl. She was called Shalini. So I said, why
Mm.
not name it after her? But Shalini seemed too traditional. So
Yeah.
I then shortened it to Shells. So that's how Shells came about to be.
That's so nice. What
Yeah.
does your wife feel
Thank you.
about this? Just kidding.
She's my wife now. She's my wife now.
Oh.
Yes. So that's how it is. That's how it
That's
is.
so cool, sir. So you've always
Thank
wanted
you.
to be in this industry since college times, or like how was it?
Oh, I'll tell you, meaning this was till I came to my first year of MBA, I hadn't heard the word called advertising agency because back then we were pretty ignorant, small town. It was a uh, no emails, no internet, no nothing. So you hardly had any exposure. So
Yeah.
Nagpur was a overgrown village in a way. So
Mm-hmm.
I had no clue at all. So when I got into my first year of MBA, and we were supposed to do an internship. That's when a friend of mine who was a year senior to me said, "Why don't you do a this thing internship in advertising?" And
Hmm.
that's for the first time set me thinking. Yeah, all the ads that we see must have been made by someone, right? He said,
Hmm.
"Yeah, yeah, yeah. So why don't you join an advertising agency?" And that was my first exposure to the word advertising agency. And I then tried to find out and got hold of some addresses in Delhi because
Mm-hmm.
Delhi was someplace we were not from a very well to do family, we were low middle class. And I couldn't have gone to Bombay and stayed there on my own,
Mm-hmm.
paying for it. I
Yeah.
had some relatives in Delhi, so therefore I chose Delhi. And then applied to any and every advertising agency for internship that I could lay my hands on the addresses of.
Mm-hmm.
And by chance, it was just one small agency in Daryaganj that allowed me as an intern. That was called Impact Advertising. Uh,
Hmm.
that's how I got into advertising. And when I first stepped in and started doing, I said that this is where I would rather spend my life than do any other marketing job because I was majoring in marketing. So I said
Yeah.
this is where I really, really belong. So that's
Hmm.
how I got into advertising.
Back then, like, what was the kind of work that these advertising agencies used to do, like
So
videos and
it was
strategies?
it was only traditional, meaning print, outdoor, radio. In
Hmm.
fact, yeah, television had just come in. Yeah, 82 was the year when color TV was introduced in India,
Mm-hmm.
and just about 4 or 5 years of color television. So
Yeah.
yes, and, some amount of commercial, but only Doordarshan, no private channels then. So it was very basic, but yes, the legions of advertising were very active then. You had to rely more on your creative element rather than media pressure as we call it today. So you
Mm-hmm.
have influencers and stuff now to take your
Yeah.
message across. You have user generated content and whatnot.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
back
Hmm.
then you had to ride the entire communication resting on your creative force, and
Okay.
that therefore you had people like Alec Padamsi, and even before that, Frank Simos and all.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
youngsters probably have never heard these names, but they were giants back then. So it was newspaper advertising was a mainstay, absolute.
Hmm. 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 Okay. And what used to be the KPIs back then? Like, just get this news in this sort of newspaper, or like what were brands trying to achieve back
So
then?
brand basically the competition back then was also not as intense. There were a couple of big players in every industry, but yes,
Hmm.
I'm talking about the pre-liberalization era where when I started my own advertising agency,
Hmm.
we had two shops on a main street market. One was
Yeah.
my dad's shop and facing it was my uncle's shop.
Hmm.
And we had only one telephone, which was on my uncle's shop. And I started my agency behind my father's shop, a proper one man show. There was no one
Hmm.
else. And I had for company, people who repair watches and radios, because that's what our shop was for.
Hmm.
And so all those people sitting there, and one table was vacant, which I took up and said, look, I'm starting my agency from here. So what I'm trying to tell you is then if there was a phone call that would come, someone from the shop opposite would come running down to me. Aapka phone hai? Then I'd go across the road, take the call, and that was something called a PP number. PP meant you didn't have this phone number, someone would have to call you. So everyone understood a PP number means you have to request for that person to be brought to the phone. So
Hmm.
uh, that's how difficult getting a phone was. And I had to apply in a category which was youngsters today have not heard of. It was called OYT category. OYT is own your own telephone. And you
Okay.
had to pay something like, back then, if I'm not mistaken, back in 87, 88, I'm talking about,
Uh-huh.
a princely sum of 6,000 rupees, and yet wait another year to get your phone connection.
Oh,
And
that's
then
crazy.
someone would come and connect, and you had to pay another $1,000 to that guy. But then I went to a minister in Nagpur and he signed my application so I could get it a little faster. But what I'm trying to tell you is those were days of scarcity. Everything was scarce. You didn't have
Hmm.
anything available off the shelf kind.
Yeah.
If you needed a two-wheeler, you had to wait 10 years. If you needed a phone, generally, you didn't have to wait another 10, 20 years. So things were completely ration and license raj as we know it today.
How
So
come a two-wheeler
therefore,
would take 10 years back then?
because the government would decide how many you could manufacture in a year, because steel production was limited, and the government had to allocate where the steel would go, which industry is a priority industry. So if Bajaj had the capacity to manufacture more two wheelers, yet they would
Hmm.
only get a limited amount of steel. So a limited amount of steel would mean they could manufacture only limited number of two wheelers. So everything, in fact, to get an HMT watch,
Hmm.
HMT Sona was the brand then,
Yeah, yeah.
you had to actually buy it in the black market or wait another 6 months to get hold of a watch, because every watch shop would get a quota of two or three pieces coming. So 99%, because we owned a watch shop, 99% of the requirements of wristwatches was basically satiated by smuggled watches.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
that was the era. People today can't even imagine, what it was back then. Imagine to get a watch, if you had to apply and you had to wait for that long. You bought a transistor radio and you had to get a license to be able to play it. So you had to first apply for a license for a radio, because it's a receiving transmitter in a way. So you had
Yeah.
to apply for a license. Once you got the license, and then you could take the delivery of your radio or transistor. So it was a very different era altogether
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we've seen. Yeah.
So yeah, I've heard about pirate radio stations who have these frequencies, like these DJs and all use these pirate
Mm-hmm.
frequencies, right? So in the nearby
Yeah, yeah,
area,
yeah.
they play music and they don't get the like certification and everything for that. But yeah, I guess I've heard about this thing. But coming back to this, sir, like how have things changed? I know like things have changed drastically since back then, but
Change,
as
change
in
is
like
change would be a change is a very small word. Change. It is a sheer revolution of from where to where. So that's said, waiting 10 years to get a telephone connection to
Mhm.
where every company is after you. Ke mera sim laga lo, mera sim. We have the lowest rates in the world for telephony and
Yeah,
internet. It's a
yeah.
huge boon, yes. So we have everything is completely transformed. There is no way you can compare the two eras.
Hmm.
So that's
Specific to
changes in understanding.
advertising is what I meant. Like,
Yeah, so advertising also, I'll tell you. So every single, uh, for example, an ad that a campaign you were planning, so you would need a lead time of about 5 to 8 weeks to do a newspaper campaign. Why? Because
mhm.
every single word either had to be hand drawn into a font or pasted through a transparent sheet, or later, when slightly later, typesetting was something that came into vogue. But before that, it had to be either transformed into a block. Okay, so sending material across the country would mean you couldn't send many blocks. So out of the block, you had to make a mat, which was taking an impression of whatever you needed to print on a piece of something which resembles cardboard. So it was like wet pulp. You would put
Okay.
the impression on that through a press, make 10 copies of that mat, as we called it then. That
Mhm.
mat would be sent across to all the publications for release. Remember, back then you did not have couriers. So it would go by ordinary post. There was no
Yeah.
speed post too. So
Okay.
you had to just kind of work, keep praying and keep your fingers crossed that the material reached on time. So you had to schedule an ad 15 days later and send the material 15 days in advance for that to be received there, get an acknowledgement of some kind. And also, there were no STD call, just pick up the phone and dial any city. You had to
Hmm.
book a trunk, and we would in the agency sit with the phone and make lightning calls. Material mila kya? Material mila kya? It was a huge organizational nightmare. So I'm telling you, people today
Uh,
can't really figure out. Imagine when you can say what we've been through. So that's the
yeah.
kind of change. Any brochure we would do,
Uh-huh.
so if on the third page of the brochure, you had a client wanted to change one or two lines, it would we would break out into sweat because that meant from the first page onwards, you have to change all the alignments, all the pasting. You have to take off the pasting of every single line was cut and paste, right?
Hmm.
In a
Hmm.
proper alignment along a visual or something. Visuals of a hand drawn. And from to reach the third page and make that correction, you have to start from the first page because otherwise your alignments would change. And so a brochure would be a 3 to 4 month job from the start to the print. And today we
Hmm.
give out printed brochures 3 days after the brief. So just imagine the two conditions.
Yeah.
And also, of course, today a brochure can be made by anyone and everyone on Canva and other tools. In fact, today AI is giving you better designs.
Hmm.
So that time, if you didn't have a very skilled artist or an art director, a brochure was impossible. So the entry barriers to the business were very high. Today,
Hmm.
anyone and everyone is a digital marketer or an advertising guy. Why? Because
Yeah.
he takes words out of chat GPT, puts it into something else, gets the design, shoves it across to the client, and that's it, right?
Hmm.
Within
Hmm.
5 minutes, he's done. I'm talking about four
What do
months
you
to
feel
do a
about this
brochure.
approach,
So,
though? Like this new approach of
no,
using AI and everything?
well, every tool has its strength, of course. So, if you know what to get out of it, you'll do a very good job. So if strategically you are in place, based on that strategy, you've decided to do a certain kind of creative, the expression of it, you are very sure. And then if you use the tool, you'll get the right thing.
Hmm.
But using it only as a shortcut would give you something which is okay, meaning it will serve the purpose at times. Okay,
Yeah.
kids can do it. But in the long term impact on communication and brand building, if you are not strategically aligned and know what you're doing, then of course it's going to harm the brand more than help it.
Hmm.
So yes, the tool is very, very impactful, provided it's in the hands of the right kind of team who knows what to do with it. बाकी काम चलाओ काम मिल जाएगा सबको अब एटलीस्ट people will not make grammatical errors and all because you shove
Yeah.
the stuff into chat gpt, it checks out the grammar for you and gives you the right kind of sentences. So that way, yes, wahan tak it will help. But the
Hmm.
rest of the stuff, if you don't know what to prompt, what to get, it's going to be difficult.
True. True. And your switch from when social media marketing came into the scene, how did your
Mhm.
switch happen from, say, like a traditional marketer to now like
So
social media marketer and everything?
I always one person who, despite staying in a well, would always go out. I would always go to Mumbai to attend. I became a member of the Art Club of Bombay and would go. At time I couldn't afford, so take
Mm-hmm.
buy a second class ticket in a railway unreserved and go to Mumbai to attend workshops and speaker sessions, etc. So I would keep aware of what's happening in the world. So around 15 years ago, roughly 12 to 15 years ago, I saw the writing on the wall. There are a lot of publications which were closing down in the US, etc., because revenues were falling for newspapers and
Yeah.
digital was growing. So I started looking at digital seriously about 13, 14 years ago. And then I decided to go to IIM Bangalore and do a 1 day MDP on 1 week MDP on digital marketing
What's a
and
MDP?
get my management development programs like they
Okay.
have,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
PDPs and MDPs. So I
Mm-hmm.
went and did a one week workshop there at IIM Bangalore on digital marketing, and
Yeah.
came back and started doing dabbling around with it for my own clients, gradually starting off. So we were one of the first advertising agencies. Or rather, the first digital marketing agencies in this part of the country, because we realized long ago that things are actually not going to stay the same. And
Hmm.
things would have carried on. Print would have still been a reasonable force. had the pandemic not hit, so they would have had a life of maybe 5 or 8, 10 years more. But
Mm-hmm.
pandemic really put the last nail in their coffin. So not that print will completely die out. There would be one or two strong publications from every town, maybe that they can support, at least
Yeah.
the larger towns. But on the whole, the revenues are really in a sad state today compared to what they used to be once upon a time. In fact, digital 2 years ago, advertising revenues have overshot print. Just
Hmm.
imagine, print has a 150-year history in India. The
Yeah.
first publication came out in Calcutta some 150, 130 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, whereas digital is about 15 years at the most, right? But
Hmm.
within the last 15 years, digital has already overtaken print in as far as advertising revenue is concerned. So the
Hmm.
writing is very clearly on the wall. And every year, print is shrinking. Even television is shrinking for that matter, though they still are very strong. But it will stabilize at some point. So as I said, mm, print is important, definitely yes. But I don't see so many publications surviving. In fact, were it not for government advertising, every day you see full pages of political parties and election advertising and those tender notices and all those kind of revenue that publication gets from the government, either state
Yeah.
or central.
Yeah.
Lots of them would have died out already. So it's just that and some other revenue that's keeping them alive for the moment. Maybe the country might have 1/50th of the number of titles registered today. That's
Mm-hmm.
about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any industries who are like dependent on traditional medium only, like could be like a real estate or fashion, or are there any sort of industries who are totally dependent on traditional marketing for their
I
outreach?
don't think any industry is completely dependent on that media. They are most of the times media agnostic, because if digital is offering you the kind of reach today
Mm-hmm.
which print cannot even dream of, then who will be dependent? So whether I have to reach out to a very busy doctor, or I have to reach out to a chartered accountant or to a businessman, uh, I don't see print being able to compete as far as the cost and efficiencies are concerned with digital, number one. Two,
Mm-hmm.
if I look at my own house today, my son is 30 and my daughter is 27. They haven't, they are fully informed. They read the news, etc. They get instant notifications of the news.
Yeah.
But they've not touched a physical copy of a newspaper, right? I mean, touch meaning,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I get all the newspaper titles at my place, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't read it. It keeps
Yeah.
lying there. They get their news on their interface, whether pad or a phone, wherever, right? So they're
Mm-hmm.
informed. They don't need the print medium. So content is going to be important, yes, but the physical form will keep changing.
Okay.
So Times of India, if it has the credibility, it might convert into a digital. It has, in fact. So I would still have more credibility with the Times of India news, but the revenue models for Times of India have been completely destroyed. Right, the kind of
Hmm.
monies they would make once upon a time in print, they
Mm-hmm.
cannot hope to make that kind of money on digital now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the kind of changes we are talking about. So therefore, the questions arise. What happens to the quality of reporting if there is
Hmm.
not that kind of money for reporting? Okay,
Yeah.
media is earning. Where would it sustain good quality of journalists? So
Hmm.
this is a very linked problem, and we are seeing the results of it all around us today.
Yeah.
In fact, just today there was this news I was reading about yesterday. Some research that has happened, which says people today are consuming more news by media influencers and carry greater credibility than newspapers or news titles. Now, this is shocking to me,
Hmm.
and that is
Hmm.
why the whole phenomenon of fake news and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very prominent now.
Yep.
Um, cool. Coming back to Shell advertising, are there like what sort of clients do you work with and prefer
So
to
I'll
work
tell
with?
you, yeah. So we've kind of dominated Central India for a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
The profile of our clients in Central India includes brands like Haldiram. One of the branches is based out of Nagpur. So there
Mm-hmm.
are three branches of it, three brothers. So one is Calcutta, the other is Delhi, and the eldest brother is in Nagpur. So the
Okay.
brand was started by the brother in Nagpur, Shiv Kishanji Agarwal. We call him Babuji. So we've been handling Haldirams for the last, I mean, maybe 30 plus years.
Yeah.
and off and on. Then there is a brand called Baidyanath. Again, a similar story. It's tightly divided family, different units. So Nagpur has one of the major units, and we've handled Baidyanath for a very, very long time, again 35 years or so. Then there is Dinshaw's, a regional ice cream brand.
Okay.
They're also coming up with other products. They're very strong here. They're the number one. In fact, they sell more than any other brand, national brand, also in Central India.
Oh, is it?
So we've been handling, yeah, yeah. And then there are a lot of educational brands that we handle, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
real estate big players of this region that we handle.
Okay.
And about 12 years ago, we started a spun off a unit in Dubai too. So we've been operational in Dubai for the last 12 years, where my younger brother manages that operation. And we've handled most international clients in Dubai. And when we compete in Dubai, we compete with international advertising agencies. Some part of the work is done in Nagpur, some part of the work is done there. So what we've tried to do is, kind of do the quality of work which is happening anywhere in the world. And
Yeah.
yet I prefer to stay in a small town, and therefore I'm in Nagpur and I manage the agency out of here. And then we've got, in fact, you'll be surprised, we have a couple of clients in Mumbai who we are servicing out of Nagpur, a couple of clients from Singapore who we are servicing out of Nagpur. So
Yeah.
that way we are pretty well spread out. Only thing is I don't want to move out of Nagpur. So I'm very, very happy staying in Nagpur.
How does that work out for your team? Like, do they move to Nagpur to join you?
It's often on a challenge because uh, we have good explore.
Just give me a second, sir. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
its voice is getting a little choppy.
Okay, okay. Let me check.
Yeah, it's better now. I can hear you.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, perfect.
Is
Sounds
it good?
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I was telling you was it becomes a challenge off and on because
Mm-hmm.
when a fresh talent joins you and you train them, after a while they would want to explore the bigger markets, right?
Yeah.
And therefore they go to Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore. All of them have gone abroad too. One of our very decent guys is now probably heading some operations in Oman. So
Mm-hmm.
that way it becomes a challenge from time to time. But otherwise, there are a couple of people who've been very stable. Our art director, senior art director, moved to Nagpur about 33 years ago, and he's still
Okay.
with me. So those kind of people, you'll be surprised. The second person that I had in my agency is still with me 36 years, 35 years down the line.
That's amazing, sir.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. People can't expect to last that long today.
Especially in a media
Uh,
space.
yes, yes. So,
Um,
and I think if you're good to people and give them a good environment, things do tend to work out for you.
yeah, yeah, of course. So, like staying in a company for that long, I mean, you need like something there, eh? Like
Yes,
moving with your
absolutely. A
family and
company,
everything.
a media company lasting that long in itself is a nothing short of a small miracle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. True then. How big is your team?
So we are about 19 people here in
Okay.
Nagpur and another 11 odd in Dubai.
Okay. And most of the operations are around social media, media marketing, and everything.
So we still are very strong in traditional, so
Mm-hmm.
design, brochures, etc., campaigns, etc., and then digital too. So our revenues are currently about, if I'm not mistaken, 50-50 from both sides, 50% digital. So the team is also approximately the same. So 50% team looks into digital and 50% is your traditional media. So what
So,
happens is we have a great advantage to offer a complete solution to a client. So same conceptually, the same campaign theme overarchingly runs through digital and print, and the client gets an added advantage of the same kind of activity happening across channels.
hmm, I get what you mean. Um, is that necessary? Like, would you say, like, is it just like one of the good things that you should have, or should everyone go this route?
No, no, no. I don't think it is going to happen very frequently because the media business was unbundled long ago, right? So
Hmm.
when we started media buying, planning, client servicing, strategic communication planning, account planning, creative, everything was within the same, agency. It's not about the age, it's more about location.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a 45, 50-year-old person and in an urbanized setting, you would still be on Facebook and YouTube watching videos, etc.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
if not Insta.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas if you're in a rural setting, then
Yeah.
the likelihood of you being connected because of the bandwidth issue, electricity issues, and generally too, are
Mm-hmm.
slightly lower. So
Okay.
we need to look at audiences from their location perspective more than the age perspective.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But say 80 to 85% of Janta is using internet on their
Mm.
phones, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I don't think so electricity would make much of a difference there, would it?
No, of course not. If you're on the phone, definitely not. But the smartphone phenomenon, again, let's say the penetration of smartphones in rural areas is still only about 50% or below.
Oh, is
So you
it?
still have a huge, yeah, yeah, you have a huge percentage of population still not connected.
Hmm. What are they using? The keypad ones that we had back in early
Uh,
2000?
yeah, the normal phones without your we don't the non-smart phones.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
The non-smartphones. These dumb phones, I tell you.
They were the best. In fact, if you ask me, it's such a huge distraction today. Pick up any random person and take his phone and look at the screen time. Is bound to be in excess of 6 hours a day or something. So that's how distracted we are. In fact.
For sure. For sure. Uh, so what would you say like what are the traits of a good marketer?
That's a rather difficult one. They're of course not what I've seen to be like a smart, glib talking guy. Okay, that's not a good marketer, but a person who is at least two things. One is he understands numbers and can handle analytics a little, because today you move by numbers, right? What is happening in terms of whether you're looking at digital or print, either way. So an analytical mind is very important. And two is the understanding consumer behavior, psychology aspect of it. So
Mm-hmm.
why does someone behave the way someone does? In something, anticipating what will happen if this is done, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. So those two areas are very important for a marketer. And also three, he should be always very alert in terms of changing trends. Things in our times back then would take years to change.
Yeah.
Today, one day you have something happening, and 2 days later the world has changed. So I often say, our times, first the grandfather and the grandson, there was a generation gap. Then it shrunk to father and the son. Today, the elder sister and the younger sister, there is a generation gap, 3 years
Yeah.
different, and they're living in completely different worlds. All right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how things are changing. So you have to be very aware and alert of changing trends. Where is the crowd moving? What are they doing, etc., etc. And if you can't
Mm.
ride that crest, you're left behind.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So analytics, you would say, and the second thing you mentioned was to
It's
understand
understanding
psychology,
consumer behavior and psychology. And third is, of course, market trends.
market
Market
trends, the
trends, as I
change,
say, it includes everything: consumer trends, etc., etc.
tech, everything. Cool. So based on this, like, what would you suggest if there's someone who wants to start out in the same field as you? They are maybe doing an
Mm-hmm.
MBA or a BBA right now.
Mm-hmm.
How should they go about starting their career in advertising agency? Should they join an agency and then start their agency? Should freelance? Should do an MBA? Like, what would you suggest?
So I'll tell you, depends on which area of communication they're getting into. So we name it as advertising agency or marketing communication as if it was a homogeneous kind of a thing. But as soon as you peep in, there are very stratified and different specialities, if I may, in the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we all know there are writers, there are creative guys, there are people who are good at art, and there are good people today who are good at creative in terms of memes, etc. Meme marketing has become such a big thing. Whoever imagined
Yeah.
that earlier, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to figure out first whether it's the strategic part of the business, the strategy that you're keen on, whether it's the creative part of within the creative, which one, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that, you will choose your qualifications and where to begin, kind of journey. And but I say this generation is the luckiest generation ever on this planet, because you have everything at your fingertips. You don't need to ask anyone, you know, because in our times we had to apprentice with a senior guy. When you say apprentice, means you have to see him doing it, you have to accompany him to meetings and figure out how he does it and learn while on the job. It
Mm.
needn't necessarily be the same way today. Today
Yeah.
you can get more material about any super specialty and start doing it right away, and you can figure your way out as you move. But it always helps if you work for a large agency or a large outfit first, so that you know some things in terms of because in a large agency a lot of research data comes in, so people are, you know, planning based on because it is not always possible for even an agency our size to buy a lot of data, you know, in
Yeah.
terms of research reports, etc. That kind of stuff comes in routinely in a large agency, so you get an opportunity to get your hands onto that, look at what the other guy is concluding and applying that data for, etc. So those
Mm.
kind of things and some basic uh, ropes of the business you learn if you work for someone in a decent size agency, in a decent agency. And then you can always if you are keen, start off on your own. That I believe even today, that 1 or 2 years of working gives you a work discipline too, and you
Yeah.
know the other side of the table, you know, when you are an employee, and how the employer treats you and where you feel bad, etc. So when you become an employer, you know what to take care of too.
You bully your employees now.
No, you don't. That's why.
Cool. So let's just say someone wants to start their agency. They have a few years of experience. They
Hmm.
are good with the strategy part of it. Maybe they were an account manager at an agency before, and they've been able to handle
Hmm.
the team and everything. How would you
Hmm.
suggest they should start going about the client acquisition part of it? How
Hmm.
should they do the outreach? Should it be LinkedIn? Should it be cold calling? Should it be just, just entering the office, hey, knock, knock, I'm here. Okay.
So look, it's not either this or that. It's all of these and more. You
Okay.
never know where the lead actually will come from, you know. So you have to be a good networker, of course.
Yeah.
So it's not just because of LinkedIn that people will start calling you. If you're
Mm-hmm.
good at your work and you're posting good work on LinkedIn, and if you're writing sensible stuff there, of course you may get a lead or two there. But in my opinion, um, you need to be a good networker too. You need to know, and good networking is very different from just meeting people. It needs to you need to understand that at the at the core of this whole networking thing is to be able to give out things for free. You meet someone, you give free advice, you talk to him, you visit his place, do something for him so that he remembers you. Otherwise he's meeting 1,000 guys and collecting 100 cards. Okay, that bunch of cards is never even looked at the second time. Why will you remain in his mind uh, amongst those 100 people he met in the last conference? That only happens when you go out of your way to do something for someone, and do something which helps you stand out, right? So networking is not just meeting people and collecting cards. It's far deeper than that. And you should know how to follow up on the people you met in a way that is not spammy, in a way that is not too salesy, yet, you're there in his mind when he needs you for what you are known for. So that, as well as everything else, that because today, of course, digital marketing and digital media makes it easier for you also to reach out. If your work is good, it will stand out. Okay,
Mm.
and you need to put it out there. And if you've got good testimonials and people talking about you off and on, asking you कि ये कैसे हुआ, and you're able to tell them, in a glass house kind of an environment where everything
Yeah.
is open, and you make a mistake, it's visible to everyone too.
Mm.
So yeah, that kind of confidence and quality will definitely stand out. And then making pitches is, of course, you
Yeah.
getting to know about, yeah, know where there is an opening, which client is looking for an agency, or which client is starting off a new client, etc. But most important in our business, I believe, is taking care of your finances, because agencies tend to get paid last, and only if the money is left, and only if the client survives. So, this I believe is the biggest challenge which people don't take into account while starting agencies, uh, because our margins are very thin. Okay, as
Hmm.
an agency, if you're into traditional business, also releasing campaigns, and or today even charging retainers, it's a very competitive world out there, and
Yeah.
you don't necessarily get the kind of retainerships you would want to. So you have to do what comes your way to begin with. So being very sure that one, your working capital is going to always be in place. Understanding the basics of finance is very important for a good professional. Even if you're creative, I've made a certain amount of huge mistakes in my life, but I was fortunate to still stay afloat. I'm saying fortunate. It was
Hmm.
not something that I knew. In fact, that helped me learn, but I could have gone under then. So
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
need to understand, when does money come in, what happens if it doesn't come in, how are you going to make your commitments, in terms of salaries, media payments, etc.,
Yeah.
and how will you ensure recovery, what are the numbers looking like at the end of the year. Look at the bottom line. People tend to look at the top line. I always say
Hmm.
look at the bottom line. It doesn't matter if I've done 2 crores or 5 crores. If I've made 10 lakhs on
Hmm.
10 crores, on 1 crore, and if I've made 10 lakhs on 5 crores, I'd rather do 10 lakhs on 1 crore, because that means I'm not stretching myself. I don't have that kind of, that scale of staff, etc. I'm not overburdening my people, etc. So
Hmm.
looking at the bottom line is more important than looking at the top line in our business, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you like, as a business, how do we bring like predictability in terms of sales? Like you said, networking, and when the person is going to think about the campaign and then. So how do we bring like a sales predictability into this scene? Like we need at least
No,
5 clients on board every month or something.
so you will need some time for figuring this whole value chain across. So to figure out how many leads need to come in, to your own conversion rate, to how many need, to know the stickability of the client also. So if one client joins you at a point in time, how long does the client tend to stay with you? Now I'll give you our example. We have clients who've started with us since we started, they're still with us.
Hmm.
So uh, uh, this number is often bandied about. I'm told, a research based number, that it takes 6 times more money to convert a new client than to retain an old one.
Yeah.
So it is
Yeah.
always better to spend that 2 rupees more on retaining an existing client. Whereas if you look across the world, what are the uh, benchmarks of parameters on which the sales team is judged? Is how many new client acquisitions did you make? What
Yeah.
percentage of your clients actually converted? Whereas I say it should be on how long have your clients stuck with you, because they
Hmm.
are more profitable for you. A known devil is always better. I'll repeat myself, it will cost you 6 times more money to generate a new client than to retain an old client. So
Hmm.
if given a toss up, spend more money on retaining a client. Give him something free, give him something value added. Okay, because you're spending 6 times less money on him. So
Hmm.
he deserves something more. Just think
Yeah.
on those lines rather than every morning looking at which new client I can get.
So I have to stop talking shit to my clients now.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, this comes from 37 years of experience that I think 50% of my clients are more than 20 years old. And
Hmm.
therefore, I can sit comfortably and talk to you. And that is predictability, if there is predictability.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your role now at Shell? Like, do you work in the strategy side of stuff, hiring or?
I tell you, I was a strange combination. One of the reasons I attribute my success to, even in a small town, was, and more so in a small town, was when I started, there were no copywriters and no creative guys here. And though I had done my MBA, and in the agency which I joined, Everest Advertising, which was then the country's fifth largest advertising agency, in collaboration with then Saatchi and Saatchi Compton Worldwide, which was then the world's number one agency.
Hmm.
So I was in the client servicing area, but I would moonlight as a writer with some other people. So I was
Hmm.
always a copywriter, but I got my break because I had done my MBA as a client service person. So I was very lucky to get an exposure to both sides. So when I started on my own in Nagpur, I didn't have to look for a copywriter. I only needed an art guy to convert my concepts into, tangible stuff. So that's a major advantage I had, which I retained over a period of time. So I did my PhD later, only 5 years ago, incidentally,
Yeah.
in consumer behavior and brand building, which is very close to my heart. So yes, strategy, and till this date, I do all major campaigns myself, conceiving and writing them. So I consider myself very fortunate that I'm able to do both of them. My son has recently joined our agency 2 years ago, so he's taking care of the digital and the other aspects. And also gradually, I'm shifting all the load to him, so I can hang my boots in the next few years.
Mm, that's amazing, so. So, so you said you lately did your PhD. I thought that was in philosophy. I read that on your LinkedIn.
No. So it's called Doctor of Philosophy, but you can do it in any subject. PhD can be done
Oh,
in any subject. Biology, zoology, chemistry, you name it.
no, no, I know you can do PhD in any field and everything, but I
Yeah,
thought it
yeah,
was in philosophy.
yeah.
So I'm like, Ari,
No, no,
that's
no.
like personal
No, no,
science. You sit and you think
no.
about stuff.
Yeah. I read only philosophy. That's another issue. Yeah, that's very close
Yeah.
to my heart again. But this was in media and impact of media on brands and consumer behavior.
Okay, great. So coming back to this, so like, what should be the pricing strategy if we are onboarding a client? What should be kept in mind when we are charging them something?
Okay, so sooner or later you need to arrive at your cost first. So suppose in my agency, I'm just throwing a number at you. It may not be the real number.
For
It
sure.
shouldn't be the real number. So if our monthly expense is say 10 lakh of rupees, so you have 25 working days, 8 hours a day. So what is my cost per hour as an agency, first of all?
Hmm.
Now just double that, because you would need to actually charge double to be just profitable.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'll just look at this number. So say I'm bad at maths. Huh? I flunked my mathematics in 12th. So 10 lakh divided by 25 equals 40,000 divided by 8 hours equals 5,000 rupees an hour. Now,
Hmm.
this is the cost of running the agency. So I should be charging anywhere between 10 and 15,000 at least per hour of agency time. Now, that includes everyone, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I need to, when I look at a job, I need to guesstimate as to how much time it is going to take for me to complete this assignment.
Yeah.
And based on that, I should, and if I'm good and I've been staying here for a long time and people know that I'm good, then I can always charge a premium. But starting out also, you need to charge at least double your cost to stay viable over the long.
तो अब जैसे द गाय हु स्ट्रेट आउट लाइक एमबीए उसका तो क्या ही टाइम की वर्थ है तो what do you say?
नहीं नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है. Then he has to, one second, you have to look at the opportunity cost then.
Yeah.
Suppose you joined a organization as an employee. What would
Yeah.
you have been paid, right?
Hmm.
Say
Hmm.
1 lakh rupees. Now 1 lakh rupees a month you would have got. Divide that by 25 days. Divide by the number of, that's your hourly cost.
Hmm.
Then you would have some kind of an establishment, a laptop, uska depreciation rahega.
Yeah.
Okay, electricity, phone, add on some more. So that you'll arrive at a cost per hour for yourself, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Now double it or triple it, and then start looking at that number.
Okay.
Everyone
Okay.
has a cost. Either it's an opportunity cost or an existing cost.
Great. And often times when I'm on YouTube and I look for these suggestions of say like a marketing agency guy, they keep talking about
Mhm.
niches.
Mhm.
You should do this niche. This niche is better than that niche. Real estate is better than a jewelry brand, or a jewelry brand is better than an FMCG. What's your take on this? Like, should there be a niche that an agency should be working in?
It's a very personal kind of a scenario here. We would rather be, we as an agency have been more generic, because
Mm-hmm.
we started off in an era where people were generic. So therefore, legacy terms, we are generic. But if you've got some expertise in certain area, now there are some uh, agencies uh, who are specializing only for say dentists, and they understand the dentist business very well, and they're able to market that to the right kind of audience, and they have results to prove that. Perfect for them, definitely yes. So yes, each industry does need a little amount of deep dive and specialization if you have it. You can pitch to that industry specifically. It'll get you more value. So it's your personal situation at a certain point in time.
Okay, okay. So you work like you are you have a general thing going on. But yeah, if
Yeah.
someone has like an expertise in something, they can probably
Yes.
go this
Yeah.
route of
Yes. Yes.
selecting
Yes.
niche.
So I know a dentist who's extremely good with doing workshops for dentists on how to make more money in terms of entire management of a dental outlet. Right from setting it up, marketing, what kind of marketing to do, how to treat a client in terms of treat behavior, in terms of not the medical aspect of it, treatment aspect of it, but in general behavior terms, etc. How to ensure that the client doesn't negotiate, how to charge the right amount, and how to collect all that he put together. He does a full day workshop and all. He's very well known amongst dentists, and since he's a dentist who's advising them on marketing and management of a dental outlet, he's
Hmm.
he's a hit. He's a hit. He makes more money out of them than he would have made as a dentist.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. True that. Uh, so yeah, that's it, sir. These are all the things that I wanted to ask you.
Wonderful.
Is there something that we might be missing out on that you might want to share or something?
And I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and we can always do a part two coming soon, right? If need
Yes,
be.
yes. We can do a part two, maybe yeah, coming weekend or
Yes,
next week.
sequel. Yeah. Okay. If that is if this one is a hit, otherwise not.
Alright, so I'll make this a hit then.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Arpan.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thanks. Take care. All the best.
See
God
you,
bless
sir.
you. Bye.
You
Bye.
too.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.
See
Bye.
you.
Bye. Bye.